started with a presentation, if I could have everybody's attention. With us again today, we have the staff of the University of South Florida Institute of Government, as well as some of their instructors and other advisors that they've assembled a team. As you know, we completed phase 1 of our economy building strategy last year sometime, and they're here to make the presentation regarding phase 2. It was the board's wishes that when we got to the point we were ready to do phase 2, that they would come back for another thorough presentation of what they plan to do in that phase. So they're here to do that for you today. They're also, after the presentation, will be available to answer any questions that the board members may have.
Good morning, Angela Christ. I'm the director of the Florida Institute of Government at the University of South Florida. While Casey is putting up our presentation, just wanted to say thank you to the board members. We are sorry we uprooted you once you were nice and comfortable, but we just thought that it was better that we were up here in a panel discussion, so if there are questions, we have our whole team up here to answer them, so we do appreciate your flexibility in moving. Okay, great. So for those of you who were involved in phase 1, I just want to, if you were or were not involved, I just want to reiterate with you who we are and what our mission is. Again, we're with USF, the University of South Florida, and the Institute of Government. And so we work every day to increase the quality and effectiveness of government in Florida. And so how do we go about doing that? We do that through training, technical assistance, and applied research projects. And specifically within a 9-county geographic region. And so we work within Hardy, Hernando, Highlands, Hillsborough, you can see the rest, Manatee, Pasco, Pinellas, Polk, and Sarasota. And so we really work with local governments, nonprofits, special districts, and we try to bring together what we think are appropriate subject matter experts, whether they're from the university or consultants in the field who are experts in their field, to help you with whatever issues you may be facing. And we were able to do that in phase 1. And so if we could go to the next slide, please. Thanks. Just really quickly, our team members from phase 1 and for phase 2, we have Terry Johnson. He's with the Florida Center for Community Design and Research. We have Mary Jane Stanley, who's with the Institute of Government. Bob Gray, Strategic Planning Group. He is one of our subject matter expert consultants. Trent Green with the School of Architecture and the Florida Center for Community Design and Research. See what happens when you work at a major university? Very long titles. And then we have Margaret Alsop, who is with the Department of Anthropology, and Dr. Antoinette Jackson could not be here today, but Margaret is here to represent our Department of Anthropology. So I just want to walk you through, before I turn it over to my colleagues, we completed the phase 1 report, and this was the report that was presented, and there's a lot of great information in there. I think we're very proud of the work that was done. But what I want to share with you is we presented this back in November of 2012. And I just want to share with you some next steps that were identified. If you recall, in phase 1, we said, let us get through phase 1. We can't tell you where we're going to go with this project until we complete phase 1. Look at those next steps and recommendations, and then come back and meet with the EDC, the IDA, and say, where do we go from here? And so I'm going to review with you the next steps, and then what you're going to hear from our colleagues is what we were able to, ooh. Yes, okay, so just next steps identified. So after doing all of this wonderful work over several months, there were some key areas that we identified where we thought would be a natural next step for you to progress in terms of helping you build this economy building strategy. So one of the things was that we recommended is that we have our team begin to look at what other rural communities have done to capitalize on their information technology, such as broadband. We also recommended that we begin to look at criteria to facilitate this creation of some type of technology park or district based on broadband. Additionally, we recommended looking at some additional information on physical conditions, land usage, etc., for potential sites for another technology park. as well as looking at one of the other things that came up, and one of the reasons Margaret is here, is also looking at what other communities have done to recognize those ethnic shifts, and population as it relates to economic development. Just a couple of others. One of the other things that we thought was extremely important as you move forward with your strategy is, how do you develop an implementation matrix where you have all of the information and data from the work that we've done, as well as recently developed plans. We know that you've had a visioning plan, and you have a regional plan as well. And so we thought that it was really extremely important that this implementation matrix be created and developed to help guide you in your next steps. And just a couple of others, housing strategies. One of the things that we thought was important was that you begin to look at and address the current and future housing needs within Hardee County, that you also understand those gaps in housing, as well as educational delivery, and then last but not least, is also looking at, are there some other corridor nodes, economic development corridor nodes within Hardee County where you would be able to focus your economy building strategy. So based on those next steps, findings and recommendations, again, we went through coming up with what we anticipate our scope of work and proposed activities to be, again, focusing on your current economic base to help you to include your assets and challenges. We want to make sure that whatever we are providing you, that there are opportunities for growth, both immediately, so that you can see some real tangible effects right now, as well as within the next 5 to 10 years. And then obviously, we also want to help you put into place some quantitative and qualitative alternatives, again, measurement, to help you see where you are, where you're going, and how you get there. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mary Jane Stanley, and she's going to actually walk you through our scope of work and the activities which we are proposing for Phase 2. But I just want to make one comment before I do that, and that is that you have momentum right now. Phase 1, there was a lot of great work that came out of it, and we concluded that in November. And here we are in April. And so I strongly encourage you, while you have momentum and while you have the support and while we have the research and the data, that you really consider what we're proposing and how we move this forward, so that you don't lose the momentum that you have.
Thank you. So basically what we've come up with 7 key activities. And it's basically 7 key activities that need to be done, and what's included with that is in excess of 42, maybe 45 different tasks. So that sounds like a lot of stuff, and it really is. And the key activities, I'm just going to kind of summarize them real quick. It's, getting with Casey and Bill and clarifying your project, the goals and the objectives of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Activity 2 is reviewing your technology infrastructure and seeing what other rural communities have used and what you may be able to learn from those going forward. Identifying economic development nodes, corridors, where are some other locations that you may want to put some projects. Developing some comprehensive housing strategies. Looking at transitioning, ethnicity transitioning that's happened in other rural communities. And then also looking at coordinating with the Central Florida Regional Planning Council and being able to coordinate what you're doing with what's happening regionally. And then the last thing is actually developing an implementation matrix, which actually puts everything together with who the responsible parties are, the funding, the time frames of how you're going to be able to get things done. Activity 1 is pretty much self-explanatory. When you get into activity 2, reviewing the technology infrastructure, basically, we'll end up looking at probably 7 to 10 other rural communities in order to be able to find 3 to 5 that have actually done something with technology parks, and to be able to see how we can help to steer you. And it may be what other rural communities have done, whether it's broadband, wireless, tech parks. We're not quite sure what we're going to find. So we're going to take a look and see what we can help you there. Then when it comes to activity 3, identifying economic development nodes, that's really looking at corridors where your roads are, your land use, your utilities that are already in place, trying to find consolidated areas that can become productive and where you can develop those quicker than other areas. And you know, what you've already done with the Tech River building, and you should be commended on what you've done there. And it really, we've toured it a couple of times now, and it really looks great. So congratulations to you for that. So what we're actually looking at now is looking around that building if there's enough property, if there's enough opportunity to be able to do an additional location there at some point in time.
The fourth activity is housing. And housing is extremely important really for a number of reasons, but two. One, you want to have adequate housing for the existing population, especially as it's shifting. But equally important, housing is very important for people that want to come into an area. It's one of those quality of life things, like why would I want to come to Hardy? You've done some of this stuff and you have goals and objectives in your comp plan, but you really don't have strategies how to accomplish it. And you don't have the data there that backed up a lot of that data. So that's what we're going to be doing, with the focus being strategies. What strategies are out there to improve the housing stock and give you policies and programs and specific action items to address those. Activity 5 is basically, again, carrying on that successful, what are other areas, what are we benchmarking in terms of that transitioning of economic development in rural areas, especially dealing with the ethnicity changes that we have. So again, we're focusing in on, again, looking at specifically benchmarking. No use in reinventing the wheel. To go out there from California to Texas and some other areas that have already gone through this and find out what are the things that have been done well that are transportable to come to Hardy County. Basically also looking at the population shifting. Remember, Beaver doesn't show you growing any, and hopefully you will be successful in economic development and you will grow, so we need to focus that and bring that into the data, if you will, and find what kind of gaps are available or currently exist in other quality of life issues like education and the thing, to focus on why Hardy County. Again, it will finish also, as all these do, with specific strategies that can be used to immediately go out to implement the process. So these are not studies for study's sake, it's actually to come up with definitive actions that can be done with responsibilities, and I'll get to that in 1 second. Activity 6 is basically making sure we're transparent and clear with what's happening at the Regional Planning Council level also, because they have certain jurisdictions and ways to contact with grants and the like, and they have their own strategic plan. So it's this idea of just to coordinate, make sure we're both talking to each other and we're both moving in the same direction as we move forward. And again, it ends also with strategies. Lastly, and I think most importantly, is you need a roadmap that defines what's going to be happening in terms of all these actions, who are the responsible parties, what is the time frame, and the like. And we're going to go ahead and put an example of one. If you flip it up here, you might find that hard to read, but what it is an example of one we just finished in another part of the state. But basically, it picks out the goals and objective. And an objective, just that top one, you probably can't read it, but it says, for example, promote available sites and buildings. That's usually what we see in all our plans. It never goes back into, well, how do we do that? And if you'll notice there are 5 specific strategies that have to be to if you want to accomplish that goal. And remember, that objective is something like an objective that would be in your comp plan. You don't have that specific things that are isolated within your policy plans that are in your comp plans, for example. So we will define that by those columns. The second one there is the responsible party. We're going to define the time frame. Is it something that needs to be ongoing? Is it something a year or 2 in the making that we can do there? Is it 2 to 3 or a 3 to 5? So we space it in time, define again where the funding sources are going to come. So who's going to do it? What's the time frame? And what's the funding sources for all these tasks, these 42 or 45 tasks that will have you and look at literally on a quarterly basis to determine, are you on schedule and are you doing what you said you were going to do in the process.
Thank you. So I just want to recap with you again our team experience. As you can see, we have a very robust team in many different areas. Some with, even though they don't like for me to say this, over 35 years experience in economic development and redevelopment planning. Over 20 years experience in running economic development programs and project management. Again, 30 years experience in urban planning. You can see it on the screen. But I think what we're trying to show you is that we have the ability to continue to bring together really seasoned subject matter experts, faculty, practitioners to help you move forward with your strategy and how you improve the quality of life for the citizens here in Hardee County. The next is just a map showing you again where we have done a significant amount of work in economic development around the state. And so, once again, we appreciate the opportunity to come before you to share with you, in our professional opinion, how we see Phase 2 moving forward. And again, I can't stress enough the importance of, while you have the momentum, of moving this forward. And so we will be happy to answer any questions on any of the specific activities. If you'd like to go back to those slides, Casey, if there are questions, we'll be glad to answer them, starting probably with activity 2, but we'll be glad to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, I do support this project. I have some concerns. Now, the people you listed as being your team, are they the ones that's going to actually do the work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're not going to contract it out or anything like that?
No, sir. The people sitting here, as well as probably some graduate students in anthropology and maybe architecture, graduate students. But beyond that, this is the team you were looking at. They will be doing the work.
Okay. Now, reading through this, it seems to me that this project is weighted toward technology. Is that true?
Not necessarily weighted towards technology. It's just that technology is one of the big things that you have going on right now, and we want to help you to enhance that.
Well, what if technology is not the way we should be doing?
Well, then we'll find that out through the research that we're doing and what you're doing, and then we'll be able, we can always change course if we need to.
I think one of the other things, sir, is that's why if you look at, I think it's activity 2, let me just go back to, yes, it's activity 2. One of the things that we're doing, again, we're really doing this in this phase from a conceptual standpoint so that you can make those decisions. And I think when we first started out looking at Phase 2, we had a lot more work in here and a lot more detail, but we took a step back and said, this is what you have going on, technology is what you have going on, but you need to be able to make better educated decisions around technology. And so I think that's what we are trying to provide is some conceptual information in terms of what other rural communities have done with technology, what are your options around Tech River, so that you can come back and make those decisions.
Okay, so you're the one that decided the scope of work?
Jointly. We, again, as you recall, after Phase 1, we had findings and recommendations in there, and then we met with the IDA and Chamber and walked through what we thought the next steps and scope of work would be, and we worked back and forth with how we came about that. So it was jointly done. Okay,
is part of this process going to be to justify the technology grants this board has awarded so far?
No, we're not involved at all in justifying the grants that the board has given out. That's not part of what we've been asked to do. No.
Okay. Is part of your scope of work to show that Hardee County is going to be the next Silicon Valley?
No. No, it's not.
Okay. Is quality of life issues for technology employees to be addressed in this report?
Yes. Let me answer one question, because it goes back to your other question about technology real quick. Technology that we're talking about is like an infrastructural issue. It doesn't mean that you're dealing with necessarily all high tech. That, for example, your wireless, broadband, et cetera, is a infrastructure that can facilitate logistics, for example, which you would not necessarily call high tech. So we're taking that term to be more holistic in terms of.
So you're not talking about actually hiring employees then?
Oh, no.
This is just an infrastructure thing?
No, we are going to be identifying types of firms, et cetera. What I'm trying to say is that those types of things that might come here under that technology umbrella, for example, the assets that you currently have, could be in areas of other than quote unquote high-tech employment. High-tech employment could be one and would be one. Logistics could be another. There are other whole host of things that rely on that, what I call infrastructure, that could enhance the job creativity of the county.
Okay, well, where will these employees come from? You talk about high-tech employees.
Okay, basically, I think there's a misunderstanding here, because we're not being charged with looking at whether you should be a high-tech community. What we're trying to do is, based on what you have here, the broadband that you have here, the infrastructure like that you have in place, what is it you could do? What is it some other rural communities have done and have already been successful in to try to get you there faster? And that's what we're trying to do, to look at some other rural communities and find out, okay, how have they done this? How have they tried to change their economy strictly from being an agricultural economy to being a little more than that, to being able to have more variety and more different types of jobs?
Well, why would we do the infrastructure if we don't intend on hiring employees, or somebody hiring them down the road?
Yeah, but that's a step that's much further down the road. But what we're saying is, do you even have in place? You have some things already in place, and we're trying to say, what do you need to complement the broadband you have here in order to be able to entice different types of businesses to be able to move here, so that you have different job opportunities, and to be able to keep those kids that are graduating from high school now that are moving away for jobs to be able to have better jobs here.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. If we build all this stuff and we don't have the employees here that can do the work down the road. I had this conversation the other day, and this guy supported employees driving from other counties into Hardee County an hour one way. Well, my scope, what I feel like is my job on this committee to do is to get jobs for Hardee County people, not for people from other counties. So, you know, I hope that in this survey that you focus on like manufacturing jobs that our people can do right now, and then we can focus on the technology as we, you know, get down the road on this thing. We can spend a lot of money on what you may come up with and not create the first job. But you can take that same amount of money and put in some manufacturing and create 50, 100, 200, 300, 400 jobs. They may not be tech jobs, and I'm certainly not against technology, but I'm for getting people a job in Hardee County. I mean, we're not a real tech-heavy people here, you know, but we can be, I guess, down the road. But, you know, we've got a problem in this county now with a lot of people, a lot of our government that's hired, they don't even live in this county. You know, they don't vote here, they don't spend their money here, they don't go to church here, the kids don't play ball here, they don't vote here, but they spend our money. And to me, we need to get our Hardee County people jobs. I got one more question, I guess. How about your costing? Are you going to do a costing analysis to companies involved to know what's going to happen before the economic return to the county? How much are we going to spend before any economic return comes back to the county from all this money we're going to be spending?
Okay. And we're not doing that as part of this project, but if you recall, I was here in January, and there was a separate contract that was awarded to be able to use an economic impact analysis company that we deal with that's going to be looking at all those projects that you've already given economic incentives to try to find out what your return on investment is and when that's going to happen. And we're in the middle of working on that study right now with staff. So that was a different study as far as a consultant looking at your return on investment. That's not a part of this project.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure, or at least tell you my opinion about this thing. I don't like it being weighted toward technology. I want everybody, every sector to have a fair shot at what you're going to come up with.
And it will.
And it will, yes.
Okay.
And I just want to reiterate my comment from earlier in the presentation. You know, what we're trying to do is what I consider looking at what's the low-hanging fruit right now, but also putting in a strategy for 5, 10, 15 years. So I think that's the point, is that we're looking at what are some things that you can do immediately, but also strategically down the road from a visionary standpoint, where can you go?
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, I'm Rick Justice. One of the blessings I guess we have here in Hardy County is we have a lot of people that are bilingual. And what I would ask you to do is in the work that you're doing, hopefully there is some other rural counties that's found a way to make that a benefit to the community. So much of our country, you know, if you call any number now, you'd have 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. And we certainly just, you know, the children that we have in the community, and adults, but they are bilingual. I think it's an asset that we need to also look at and see if it can play a significant role in our economic development.
Margaret, you can comment? Sure. Yes. Hi. That's part of what anthropology team is going to be working on, and we've done some preliminary research actually on that on some communities that are going through what you all are going through. One is Aurora, Colorado, and another was an article in New York Times. It was a series about the newest immigrants and their impact on American institutions, and it was Sonoma County they were looking at. So we've started to look at different small rural communities and how they're dealing with the same kind of issues and the switch and change in demographics that you all are going through. So we've already started that research, and that's going to be part of what we do at the beginning of this project. So that's kind of where anthropology comes in.
And just one more thing for clarity, so I fully understand. And I, in listening to Mr. Samuel's questions, in the technology aspect of it, what I interpreted that you would be doing is looking at what technology we have, which is broadband, telephones, what electricity, whatever things are things that factories or manufacturers would need to come here and develop a company in this area. I didn't take it as you were looking just at tech companies. If you would, please just clarify
No,
that
you're
for me.
perfectly correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. We're not even looking at technology companies. We're looking at what communities have done in order to be able to change the mix of the kinds of businesses that they have based on what you have in place. And what you've invested a lot of money for what you have in place. So it's like, how do you capitalize on that the best? And it's going to be a wider range of different kinds of companies, from service companies to manufacturers. It's, you know, you're gonna have a cross section of different kinds of businesses that need the broadband and the wireless that's now in place. So yeah, so it seems like it's a lot of concentration on technology, and it's really not. That's just a very, very small part of the contract. Because really where a lot of time gets spent is on the housing, looking at what you do or don't have there, looking at what's going on with the educational system, what's going on with the mix in the population that you have, and what we can help you do in order to be able to train the kids that are in school right now so that they have better job opportunities and can stay here in this community. And not every job opportunity is going to be a high-tech job. Not every job opportunity is going to be a manufacturing job. It's going to be a combination of all of those.
Morning, my name's Mike Prescott, and I'd just like to ask a few questions, looking at the next project and all, and thinking that we might need to look at some different areas. And one of them is agriculture. You know, Hardy County has been basically an agricultural country since our beginning. You know, it's been based on agriculture. And we have some new developments in the citrus industry today that is really going to be affecting the citrus. We're down to where we're, I think, something like 6 or 8% behind last year's crop. And we've got acreage dropping. Hardy County was about 50,000 acres of growth, and due to some of these new diseases, it's down about 35,000. And then there's a chance that we could lose basically all of our citrus. And when we do that, we look at the economics that are available for the county that we have lost, tax revenue, jobs, everything else. It is going to be a major effect on our county. And I think we need to focus in on that and make a lot of people aware of how bad this situation can be and what are our other options as far as, you know, other crops or anything else, other land uses. That's all.
Well, I might speak briefly to it. We, in the first phase, had I guess you call it an informal meeting, really about some alternatives for agriculture, but it was meant to be just that, informal, in terms of discussion. There are lots of alternatives, lots of things to consider. I think it's an excellent comment, and it is something that we will be addressing in terms of at least alternatives that might exist. We know that the citrus industry and related agricultural things are also the basis of some really good research opportunities that are out there, so we'll be looking at that as well. We are aware of some of the disease problems in the industry and trying to do what we can to assist in identifying alternatives.
Good morning. Sue Burge, Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. Just to make you aware that the commissioners were in Tallahassee just last week, and we met with our senator, Bill Galvano, and our state representative, Dan Albritton, as well as Denise Grimsley, who also looks out for Hardy County. The Senate has asked for $9 million for research for the greening research, and the House has asked for $5 million. So that was good news to us as we sat there and discussed with them our issues in Hardy County, as it being an ag-driven county, or has been in the past, has been an ag-driven county. And Denise also put us, Senator Grimsley also put us in touch with, while we were there, she called one of the directors of IFAS from the University of Florida, and we met with her even that day. All of us commissioners met with her, and she explained to us some of the options that are going on, research that is going on at the University of Florida right now. And I even suggested to our commissioners that we take a trip to Gainesville and look at some of those alternative plans and the options for this county, as well as DeSoto County. DeSoto County is in the same dilemma that we're in. And I suggested that we take a trip to Gainesville and look at some of those options. We have to have some options for crops if we remain an ag-driven county. So let's not forget that we do have ag in this county, and we want to continue to concentrate on that, as Mike just said. So just wanted to add those tidbits of information.
I'd like to add a comment to that. You know, sometimes all this research and all can be a double-edged sword. And if you check the apple industry today, China is about putting the U.S. apple industry out of business. And there's a chance if they cure greening, Brazil will be back, China will be back, India will be back, and all, and it can definitely have an effect on the world market. So sometimes you got to be careful what you ask for.
That's right.
Well, the secret is diversification.
Yes.
No matter whether it's diversification of the non-agrarian economy as well as diversification of the agrarian economy. That's the only, that's the economic development solution to things, is having ability to change. Because that's the only constant out there is change.
And that's really what we're trying to help you do, so you don't have all your eggs in one basket. And that's what we're trying to help you to look at, so that you're looking broader at what else you can be as a county.
I'll kind of wrap it up. Just to address a couple points, you saw 7 activities in there, but there also was 42 tasks associated with those activities, which goes into more detail. So there's a lot of the things that were mentioned today as far as agriculture and citrus and greening will be addressed. It just wasn't listed as a highlighted activity, but will be associated with the task that when we delve more into the work. I do just want to remind you that phase 1 was an analysis about what we have and where we are. What their next steps as far as phase 2 were made based on what the analysis showed us in phase 1. We do have technology infrastructure, we do have a housing need, we do have some ethnicity demographics that we need to work through and learn to bring that in. So phase 2 is not something new. Phase 2 was derived from what the findings and what phase 1 showed us in the analysis. So that's how we're moving forward. It's also just a plan. Mr. Samuels, I think you were questioning where the jobs are coming from and those things. All this is a plan and strategies to help us get, based on research from other communities that are similar to us, to help us figure out what direction that we need to go and maybe some strategies on how to get us there. USF will not be responsible for doing that. That's our job. Like you said, as as a board member, it's your responsibility to bring jobs in the community. That is our job. So just wanted to clarify those things, but USF is always glad to answer questions and take additional input, as well as we are. If there's any other comments or questions after the meeting.
If I can make one more comment.
Yes, sir, you may.
When you're done.
No, I was just going to say, we're going to wrap up the presentation today, but Mr. Jensen, go ahead.
Hi, Doug Jensen. I'm on the board, but I also manage a power plant in town. And just to talk a little bit about the technology issues that's been discussed, as well as manufacturing issues. You know, a lot of people, when they think about manufacturing, think about a bolt and a nut and a wrench. It's not that way anymore. We have a power plant that, 6 years ago in this community we were about to shut it down. We couldn't get, reliable communications in the plant. We couldn't get our power out. We had a lot of issues. All those issues have now been resolved. But one of the things that comes from that is the telecommunications infrastructure. For example, we have a link from Atlanta, Georgia, where General Electric monitors the health of our turbines 24/7. We have a data link that goes up into Connecticut, where Babcock & Wilcox, one of the largest power producers or manufacturers of equipment in the world, monitors the health of our environmental equipment, environmental emissions equipment. We have, a communications link in Clearwater, or St. Petersburg rather, and our turbines can physically be remotely controlled. They can be dispatched up and down by our customer. 6 years ago, we couldn't do that because we couldn't get reliable communications into the plant. Now we can. The money that's been spent in this community, a lot of people, look at it as a simple one-sided benefit, but it has all kinds of other benefits. And we're seeing that in our business. We're able to, we have a new 15-year contract that's very good. We're going to be here for the long haul. And some of that is in part because of money that's been spent on technology, things, infrastructure things. Another example of infrastructure needs, when we came in, our generators, the rotor itself weighs 100 tons, the generator itself, the stator probably weighs 200 tons. All of that has to come in on rail. You can't bring that in on a truck, at least not efficiently. So we railed everything into Ona. We had to have that infrastructure here. Because we had the rail, we were able to bring the plant in. Bionitrogen, another plant they're building right next to us, they have the same issue. So here's a plant. They're going to build something out of what we have here locally, but at the same time, they need infrastructure. They need rail. They need communications. You know, I have no doubt at the end of the day, they're gonna have links, telecommunication links into some other area where somebody can help monitor their process. So it's not as simple as when you think about building a car, a guy with putting the wheel on and turning the wrench. I mean, every manufacturing job incorporates more and more technology as we grow. If we want to grow as a country, we have to embrace technology as a way of manufacturing. So the two are not separate at all. So that was my comment.
Any other questions? In addition to Phase 2, I will tell you that we have started having conversations with USF also about doing a more specified plan, as this one is diversified and we go into housing and agriculture and technology in different areas. We are looking at doing another study that does focus specifically on Tech River and what we can do to make Tech River successful, and bringing companies in and how to recruit businesses and what businesses that we need to be recruiting. So that is another study that we're having discussions on that would be more specific to technology. This one is more diversified, but we don't have anything to bring to you today in regards to that, but I did want to tell you we are having conversations about that. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.